Hi, my name is Jacob, and this is Real Talk. When I was in film school, we had an assignment to watch one of 3 short films and write a report. Now, I've no memory of the other 2 films, but I do remember the one that I watched. It was titled The Door. It's about a father's desperate attempts to come to terms with the devastating effects of the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, and I must admit at the time, I knew little about it. This film was authentic and emotional, not overdone for shock value, and it definitely struck a chord with me. To this day, it is one of the best short films I've ever seen. So, in 2019, when HBO released their miniseries Chernobyl, I was no doubt interested. I watched a soulful, gloomy, and disturbing recreation of the Soviet Union's hubris that led to the tragedy of Chernobyl. I learned of people I'd never heard of, and honestly people that everyone should know. Names like Valery Legasov and Boris Sherbina, masterfully portrayed by Jared Harris and Stellan Skarsgård. It's the perspective of both of these works that is so insightful and makes it feel as if you actually lived through the experience. In this video, we will dive into the lies that led to this disaster and the fallout of them. Let's take a closer look at HBO's Chernobyl.
We seal off the city. No one leaves. And cut the phone lines. Contain the spread of misinformation. That is how we keep the people from undermining the fruits of their own labor.
On April 26, 1986, at 1:23:45, Chernobyl, reactor number 4, exploded. In the wake of the explosion, Viktor Brukhanov, director of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Nikolai Fomin, chief engineer, and Anatoly Dyatlov, the deputy chief engineer, tried to make sense of what had happened and decide what to do next. The radiation numbers that the dosimeter was giving were too high to be believed, so they chose to believe that the situation was well under control. The core was intact, and only a large control tank had malfunctioned and damaged reactor building number 4. They were terrified of the truth, and in moments of terror, people cling to their delusions. For these men, and many others, that was the belief that the Soviet Union was a utopia that could only survive if the right people held the answers. Chernobyl shattered that delusion. The lies that led to this aftermath can never be fully accounted for. Those who spread them hid behind titles of power and oaths of secrecy. They wanted to cover up this incident, keep it hidden from the world, and show no weakness. In their haste to do this, they mistakenly sent 2 good men to Chernobyl, Valery Legasov and Boris Sherbina. Together, these men would walk into the unknown as they worked tirelessly to tame a threat that had never been encountered before. But it is what they discovered at Chernobyl, the truth they found, that is far more terrifying.
You are dealing with something that has never occurred on this planet before.
From the moment Valery saw the exposed reactor, he knew that his life and the lives of all those men involved in this operation, and countless citizens affected by the spread of the radiation, were forever changed. Government officials didn't want to know exactly what had happened. They just wanted it to go away, to be handled. For to speak on it would make it too real. For them it had to be a dream, a simple mistake. And so, they lied. To keep their fantasy of strength and power alive, they said,
The official position of the state is that a global nuclear catastrophe is not possible in the Soviet Union.
They said that the radiation was equal to a chest X-ray. That number was, of course, a lie. It was closer to the equivalent of 160,000 chest X-rays, over 1,000 times more powerful. Legasov knew these were lies, and that he must do whatever he can to not only stop the spread of radiation, but of lies. He began with the fire. Helicopters poured 5,000 tons of sand and boron onto the burning 2,000 degrees exposed reactor. The fire had to be quenched in order to stop the smoke from carrying the radiation over the land. This took several weeks to accomplish, and even when it was done, something more dangerous lied in wait. The uranium fuel began to mix with the sand and create a sort of lava that would burn through the concrete shield below the reactor and affect the groundwater. This groundwater was the primary water supply for approximately 50 million people, not to mention several crops and livestock would be simply unusable. But that in fact wasn't the true problem. It was the water tanks under the reactor that were presumed empty.
The tanks are, in fact, full.
Of water. Yeah, why is that a problem, Professor?
When the lava enters these tanks, it will instantly superheat and vaporize approximately 7,000 cubic meters of water, causing a significant thermal explosion.
How significant?
We estimate between 2 and 4 megatons. Everything within a 30-kilometer radius will be completely destroyed, including the 3 remaining reactors at Chernobyl.
These tanks had to be emptied. 3 men volunteered to bear the weight of others' consequences and go into the underbelly of reactor number 4, into highly irradiated water, to open a sluice gate so the water in the tanks could be pumped out. For every obstacle Legasov faced, he understood the procedure to overcome it. But he could not have done this alone. He could not share the hard truths of what they were facing, for who in fact would listen to him? It was Boris who not only heard these hard truths, but he saw and endured them as well. He made the tough calls and navigated the bureaucratic collectivism of the Russian government to see this done and done right, calling in the army to make hundreds of drops of sand and boron, enlisting the aid of over 400 miners to dig the tunnel so they could install a heat exchanger under the reactor. He also got the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of residents, along with the conscription of thousands of men to help.
Of all the ministers and all the deputies, the entire congregation of obedient fools, they mistakenly sent the one good man. For God's sakes, Boris. You were the one who mattered most.
Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid.
From the very beginning, we see the lies and negligence that led to Chernobyl. The safety test was changed to be conducted with the night shift instead of the day shift, due to a need for power elsewhere in Kiev. The operators of the night shift were unaware and untrained for such a task. The men in charge knew this and foolishly chose to go forward with the test, keeping reactor number 4 at half its nominal 3,200 megawatt thermal level for 11 hours. This, coupled with the operator's lack of training and a critical design flaw in the RBMK reactor, set a stage for a catastrophe. The choice to continue with the safety test was the foundation, the first step that led to the meltdown of reactor number 4. The burden of this incident embeds itself in you and in each character. Director Johan Rennick and writer Craig Mazin used objective perspective to pull you into the character's experience as they become aware of what's happened. This makes it feel more ominous, as if something is lingering in the dark, and shows us the despair and devastation of this tragedy. The show captures that internal struggle as well between the truths and the lies we choose to believe. We see the refusal to accept what has happened to her husband from Ludmila, and the feigned ignorance and blind allegiance of Dyatlov.
Why are you asking the right question? What can you give the truth? There is no truth. Ask the bosses whatever you want, you'll get the lie. And I will get the bullet.
Even after the truth has been plainly seen or told, they, along with many others, still choose to deny it. At first, Legasov played along. He told the world the lies they wanted to hear in order to protect the Soviet Union. The KGB told him he was a hero. They promised him medals and a prosperous future, so long as he never revealed his true findings. It was these lies that caused a change of heart in Legasov. Mirroring the events that led to the explosion of the reactor, Legasov is brought to a state of personal imbalance, and he had to share the truth. He could no longer live with the lies and the corruption of his government. Knowing full well the consequences of his actions, he chose to no longer live in the dark, but step into the light of truth that was provided with Chernobyl. Their government failed them.
There was nothing sane about Chernobyl. What happened there, what happened after, even the good we did. All of it. All of it. Madness.
All of the victims of the Chernobyl tragedy were because of the deceptions of corrupt officials to their constituents. It was the culmination of a failure to listen, to care, and to understand. In their insatiable desire to be a nation who was perceived as strong, they foolishly chose to push forward regardless of the cost. They forced a life of darkness upon their people, bearing through false smiles and telling them that they knew best. Chernobyl is a cautionary tale about the cost of surrendering freedoms. Its harrowing reality stands as an eternal testament to the failures of communism, to the cost of lies. Forever frozen in time, this immeasurable tragedy and its devastating impact upon the people of Belarus, Pripyat, and the Ukraine can never be forgiven. Its gift was the truth, a truth that Valery Legasov was brave enough to share with his peers and the world, in a time and place where people were strongly discouraged from doing so. Let us remember them and all those who suffered through this misfortune. It was not their debt to pay.
To be a scientist is to be naive. We are so focused on our search for truth, we fail to consider how few actually want us to find it. But it is always there, whether we see it or not, whether we choose to or not. The truth doesn't care about our needs or wants. It doesn't care about our governments, our ideologies, our religions. It will lie in wait for all time. And this, at last, is the gift of Chernobyl. Where I once would fear the cost of truth, now I only ask, what is the cost of lies?
Hey YouTube, Jacob here, and I want to take a minute to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I ask that you hit that like button and consider subscribing to help support the channel, help it grow, and to see more content just like this. A lot more to come. Again, thanks for watching, and until next time, you take care.